In this presentation, we will record direct labor costs and apply direct labor costs to jobs within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in our practice problem 3. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and selecting the open windows list. We're first going to take a look at Excel to see what our objective is. We're going to be on the tab 1.12. Tab 1.12, concentrating on this entry. The entry is supported by this item over here, which says direct labor paid. So in other words, we're going to be paying the labor expenses, and we're going to be allocating those labor expenses to the jobs in this format. These are the areas where people worked on. Now, again, we're not going to be going through the full payroll process. This could be a similar process if you have subcontractors that you're paying for a 1099 process, or if you have payroll run through the system in QuickBooks or outside. The point is now that we need to basically apply it to the job. So we're breaking this down into the most simple kind of payroll type of transaction that you would think of, which would just basically be if payroll didn't have all the laws and, payroll taxes and all that, which we do have a course on if you want to take a look at that. But then it would be a debit to the expenses for payroll expense and a credit to cash typically, and it would just be like any other expense. However, when we're thinking about a job cost system, then we need to put it to the job that we're working on. In the first example, we put it to work in process and then expensed it in the form of cost of goods sold at the completion of the job. Here we're having a timing difference. We're just going to simply put it directly to the cost of goods sold account. So you could make it a breakout of cost of goods sold and once again give it a subcategory of like direct labor or something like that. But we're gonna in essence just debit the cost of goods sold account and credit the cash account for the general ledger accounts that will be affected. And then on the jobs, we're going to be allocating it to the jobs just as we did, same information as the prior problem. In this example, we're grouping it just in terms of jobs. Now, we're going to do the same kind of grouping when we get to QuickBooks as well, but note, just like we did with the materials we broke out, you could do the same with the labor. Like for example, if you're contracting, if you're doing general contracting and you have a bunch of different labor costs, then you're going to want to possibly break out, just like we did with the direct materials, using different items for the different labor jobs that you're going to have, and then you can give more detail in that format. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail when we get to QuickBooks. So just note here, journal entry is that we're going to set up. It's going to be a debit cost of goods sold, increasing the cost of goods sold, the expense account related to it, and then we got the credit to cash. Then we're going to be allocating to the jobs for that amount. We got the $30,000 for job 14, $68,000 for job 15, and the $120 for job 16. If we were to add those three up, then they add up to the $218,000 that we're recording. Let's do that in QuickBooks then. So we have the two objectives. One, the journal entry, the GL accounts. Two is to apply them to the job. If we go into QuickBooks, we're going to do this with a check. So we're going to go to the check once again, similar type of process, although this time we don't need that zero check. And I'm going to go back to the standard account, which is going to be the checking account. And did you know that I'm going to say, okay, this should be the standard account that would go to, obviously, generally, that would be our checking account. So this is actually going to be a check that we're going to write. This is going to be an amount of the date of the 12th. So I'm going to put this up to the 12th is the date that we want. So we'll make that up to the 12th. And then I'm just going to call this employee 1. And I'm going to set not as an employee, just as a vendor at this point. And just because we don't want to process the payroll here. And then I'm going to go down. Let's go straight down to the items. And then I'm going to select the items. And once again, I'm just going to select the direct labor item. Now, this is the location where you could do the same type of thing we did with the materials. You could say, hey, I have direct labor. Or if you're a subcontractor, you could say, this is direct labor for the electrical. This is the direct labor for the plumbing. This is the direct labor, and so on and so forth, creating multiple items all going to the cost of goods sold account. And you may even want to create another sub account. If I go to the lists up top and we went to the item lists, you'll note, or if I go to the lists up top and I go to the chart of accounts, you'll note we set up an account for the cost of goods sold here, and we set up a sub account for the factory overhead. You could set up another sub account for the direct labor, And then when you apply the item to it, you could put it under, it's going to be a cost of goods sold type of account that will be under then the sub account of the direct labor. So you can kind of, that'll differentiate it on the profit and loss report. So I'm going to close this back out and close this back out. So we're doing kind of just the one account here. So the direct labor, everything is going to go to the direct labor. And we're going to be breaking this out to our 3 jobs, which is the 30,000, which is going to be going to job 14. And then we have the direct labor, and we have the second amount, which is 68,000. So 68,000 going to job 15. And then we have the direct labor for the last amount, which is going to be the 120,000 going to job 16. And that's going to add up to the check, which is now populated at the 218,000. So then I'm just going to say save and close, and we can think about what is this going to do. What is this going to do? It's going to reduce the checking account because we actually did. That's what we want. We reduce the checking account. The other side is going to be driven by the direct labor item. Remember that the direct labor item is pointing to a cost of goods sold type of account. So the other side for the GL account is going to be an expense account. Then, because we use the items, it will also populate the jobs in accordance with job 14, 15, and 16. Let's check it out. We're going to say save and close. Yes. And then we're going to go to the reports drop down. We're going to go down to the trial balance. So if I go down to the accounting and taxes and then the trial balance, there is our trial balance. If we adjust the dates, we're going to say 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. There's our information. And within all of these cost of goods sold accounts, we have the direct labor right there. So there's the direct labor. Again, you might want to break it out. You could break out the direct labor into its own kind of subcategory, so that if we saw something like the profit and loss reports up top, we're going to go to the company and financial and the profit and loss report for 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. Then we have the cost of goods sold, which includes the direct labor in it. Now, so let me give you an example. If we were to then go to the view tab or the lists up top, go to the chart of accounts, and let's say we create a parent account here, and I'm going to go to the rise up account, rise up, new, and I'm going to call this a cost of goods sold type of account. So we'll go to cost of goods sold, continue, and then I'm going to call this direct labor account, and this is going to be the parent account. So we're going to say that's going to be, well, I'm just going to call it here direct labor 1 account, and so that'll be the parent account. And if I say save and close, then the other direct labor account that we set up, which is right here, I can put under that account. So we can edit this account. I'm going to right click and edit the account. And then I'm going to change the sub account. The sub account's going to go under the direct labor here. So I'm going to put it under the direct labor 1 account. And then I say save and close. And now we have it under this sub account. So there's still cost of goods sold account. So if I go back to the profit and loss report, then I can say, okay, now I've got the under cost of goods sold, the subcategory given by QuickBooks by the category. We have the cost of goods sold here, and I could have named this basically the materials cost of goods sold. Let's go ahead and do that. If I go to the lists up top, if we go to the chart of accounts, the parent account that we left here, maybe we want to call this just materials. If I right click here and I edit this account, we could call this direct materials, and then save and close. And then if we go to the profit and loss, then we can say, okay, this is under the cost of goods sold accounts. We have the direct labor. Now it's up top because of alphabetical order. So direct labor, and then just the one labor account. And again, if we had a lot of subcontractors, we could then put, you know, all the different types of thing, electrical, blah blah blah, under there. And then we've got the direct materials, which is going to list out our most common direct materials. And then the overhead, if we want to list out the overhead, which we'll see in future presentations. And then if we go to the job reports, go into the reports up top, we go to the jobs, and if we go to the job summary report, then if we're concentrating on the costs there, we're at this 651. That 651 ties out to what we have here in our jobs in our Excel sheet. And then we have our reconciliation of the beginning balance to tie out to what is on the cost of goods sold in the current time period. So that's going to be the minus the 83, or plus the 83 plus the cost of goods sold will give us the same reconciliation. And then of course we can do the same reconciliation here to see if we applied it out to the job by running the report as of 01/20 to 12/31/20. And then we have in the cost section the 568,000. If we go back to the profit and loss report, then we have the 568 for the total of the cost of goods sold. And this is why it's nice to group all these items into the cost of goods sold, because everything under this subcategory of cost of goods sold should be reflected in the job reports. Any other expense like admin expense and other stuffs on the admin office, selling expenses, can be somewhere else, not under cost of goods sold, and therefore not something that needs to be reflected in the job cost report. You want to keep those things obviously separate.